World leaders, corporate giants, top academics, they're all coming together in Davos, Switzerland today. It's the start of the 54th World Economic Forum, and security is very tight at the Swiss ski resort as those international elites begin to arrive. Number of key politicians are going to be there. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, key Middle East leaders as well. But it's the economics of things front and center, the daunting global economic forecast. That'll certainly be of interest to central bankers. Mark Carney, the former Bank of Canada head, one of those who's scheduled to talk today. But no real official Canadian representation in all of this.
I think the biggest risk we face is that we lose hope and that we lose trust into our institutions and particularly trust in our capability to shape a better future.
Covering Davos for us from our studio is Scott. Welcome back.
Thank you.
That whole question about trust, eroding trust, hence the theme of the summit this year.
Yeah, that's a huge theme, and it comes in four main branches as far as how to try to rebuild trust. And they say that there's not enough trust in institutions, in government, in corporations, etc.
This is the United Uprising channel. Welcome to today's show. All of the scum of the earth, all people who have golden tickets to hell, are meeting in Davos, Switzerland, as they do every year. And I am going to be covering it on this channel as I do every year. Despite the censorship and the strikes that this channel gets for covering Davos, at least breaking down what these agendas that they're talking about really mean, I will continue to cover it so people out there can see. As you heard in that clip, the main theme this year is rebuilding trust. So what does that mean? Rebuilding trust. Well, they're talking about rebuilding trust in institutions, rebuilding trust in the government. You know, why would they need to rebuild trust? Oh, right, because they just betrayed their citizens and showed the citizens of the earth that they are treasonous psychopaths who want to control, manipulate, and kill you. So they need to rebuild trust. And the best way to do that is through propaganda. And of course, what does that mean? It means that the mainstream media knows that people like us exist, obviously. They watch us, they follow us, they strike us, they remove us any chance they can get. And they realize that somehow people like us have more persuasion over the audience that they have full control over, because when they actually hear us all speak coherently, they realize that there is really a conspiracy, and it's a tyrannical conspiracy in a sense. It's a globalist conspiracy. And the reason that we're all divided is because of these people who are meeting in Davos. So I'm going to play for you one of the funnier clips I've seen in a long time. As they're talking about rebuilding trust, obviously one of the ways they need to do that is to put a fake illusion into people's minds of what really goes on at Davos, right? Because the people out there are like, what is this Davos? What is this World Economic Forum? But everybody, for the most part, has heard about it some way, shape, or form. And if they haven't, they really are sleeping under a rock. In fact, possibly a boulder at this point. People have heard about it. The problem is that a lot of people out there dismiss it as a conspiracy because they've been trained to. And then, of course, others like us get silenced from actually pointing out and showing what they're really doing. Things like that reset that they're talking about that's in progress as we speak. So they're putting out propaganda like this, which talk about how long the World Economic Forum has gathered together, what their whole purpose is as to why. They don't want you to think there's a conspiracy going on. They want you to think that they've actually solved world problems. They've brought, the tearing down of the Berlin Wall and all these things. They brought peace around the world. I mean, some of the stuff that they push in this propaganda piece is hilarious. Of course, they gaslight and they push all this other stuff like women's rights and caring about children, when in fact, I can't imagine the abominable acts that are happening right now in Davos with children. But of course, they play to people's heartstrings. They target women to manipulate and control them, to go along with these things inside of their homes, how they want their children raised. It's unbelievable the degree and the level of deception that's being used. But this is funny propaganda, and this will work on some of the idiots out there. But for people like us who are well awake, wide awake, you have to see how they're spinning Davos and how all these people get together and how much, I can't even believe the fact that they mentioned how much money and how much money they make. And it's like, nobody sits there and goes, what do they make money from? Well, it's probably just another massive front as well. they say it's just an event where everyone gathers. They have to put all this money in it. Obviously, a lot of that money goes into you-know-what with children, but I can't say that here on YouTube. But listen to some of the things about how the celebrities go and famous people go, and they have to pay to go. They even show Michael Jackson, which I wasn't even aware until I saw this clip that there was actually a photograph of Michael Jackson at the World Economic Forum. So for anyone out there that defends Michael Jackson and say he's not one of them, well, he might have been trying to break away from them over time for whatever reason, because disagreements happen everywhere. They happen in families. So he might have tried to break away, but he was always one of them, and he was involved in the same things that they're all involved in. But look at this propaganda from the World Economic Forum, pushing in the mainstream.
When you think of the World Economic Forum, chances are your mind takes you here, to Davos. But WEF isn't just a yearly summit in the Alps. So what is the difference between WEF and Davos? The World Economic Forum is famous for its annual week-long meeting in Davos, Switzerland, so much so that WEF and Davos have pretty much become synonymous. The alpine resort town normally plays host to skiing and hiking enthusiasts, but for 1 week a year, WEF invites business leaders, billionaires, heads of state, royalty, academics, journalists and celebrities to gather 5,000 feet above sea level to address the globe's most pressing challenges. But once the meetings are over, WEF packs up and returns to its headquarters 267 miles away in the suburbs of Geneva. Based there, around 600 of the international non-profit organizations, more than 800 employees. They say their mission is improving the state of the world, but with such a lofty goal, how do they attempt to achieve it? Let's start with the people behind WEF. The head of the organization is, and has always been, Klaus Schwab. Back in 1971, the then lesser-known engineer and economist brought his first meeting to Davos. Called the European Management Forum, his objective was to encourage business leaders to be accountable to everyone, not just shareholders. Since then, the list of attendees has expanded globally to include politicians, NGOs, scientists, and even religious and cultural leaders. It was renamed the World Economic Forum in 1987, and the history-making moments quickly followed. Among its biggest successes, the speech from West Germany's foreign minister in 1987, calling on the West to reach out to the Soviets, signaling the end of the Cold War. The first meeting between North and South Korea in 1989, the handshake between Nelson Mandela and former South African President de Klerk in 1992, symbolizing the end of apartheid. In 2003, Schwab left his post as a professor at the University of Geneva to focus full-time on building the forum into a recognized international organization. It worked. The forum grew from 450 participants in 1971 to more than 2,700 guests in 2023. And for a non-profit, WEF is extremely successful at generating revenue. In its 2022-2023 financial year, it earned nearly $500 million, with media company Semaphore reporting that if it were for profit, it would likely be valued at over $1 billion. Today, Schwab and the Forum are guided by a board of trustees, which is made up of influential leaders. Some trustees you've probably heard of, like Al Gore, Yo-Yo Ma and Christine Lagarde, while others might be less familiar. The day-to-day running of the non-profit, on the other hand, is led by WEF's president, managing directors, and executive committee. With offices in major cities around the world, WEF coordinates several regional meetings and summits, focusing on everything from jobs and AI to the climate crisis. The forum also operates 10 sector-specific centers, such as the Center for Cybersecurity or the Center for Nature and Climate. Each center invites corporations, startups, and governments to get involved through related initiatives. For example, the Center for Health and Healthcare has initiatives around protecting women and girls' health, healthy workforces, and the future of personalized well-being. WEF also has sister organizations, many of which focus on young people and how they can foster social change in their communities. The Global Shaper community, for example, has 15,000 young members in 150 countries. And every year, the WEF also publishes several key reports, like the Global Gender Gap Report or the Global Risks Report, which serve as references in the academic sector for businesses and in the media. WEF has grown beyond the confines of its week in Davos, with full-time employees and initiatives that continue year-round. But ultimately, its meeting on this snowy mountain still sits at the center of it all. For example, the rapid development of COVID-19 vaccine prototypes during the pandemic was made possible after a global initiative to fight epidemics was launched at Davos in 2016. The 1T.org platform, an initiative to plant, restore, or conserve 1 trillion trees by the end of the decade, was also launched at Davos by Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff and his wife Lynn in 2020. The launch of Edison Alliance, a branch of WEF which has helped more than 450 million people access affordable digital services, followed in 2021. And while launching a worthy cause in Davos is great for exposure, it isn't always good for optics. The image of CEOs and business leaders sipping champagne in the mountains and the billions of dollars in business deals that have come out of the event have made some critics skeptical, to say the least.
Davos is not some secret underground cult. Next.
In an array of protests, tribunes and speeches, WEF and Davos are often dubbed as an echo chamber for the elite. They say it lacks financial transparency and holds too much influence for an unelected body. And despite promoting a better world, it is still fairly unequal. Amongst the issues, the disproportionate number of Americans attending the event, usually making up a quarter of attendees. And despite some progress, men still outnumber women at the event by at least 3-1. Plus, it's just plain expensive to attend. A member of the private sector must shell out tens of thousands of dollars for membership and a ticket to the exclusive event. In 2023, participation fees contributed nearly 38 million Swiss francs to the organization's revenues, money which WEF says funds the foundation. The climate activists argue that the cost to attend Davos is nothing compared to the event's cost to the environment. Of course, guests have to travel to get here, and many are still opting for private jets as their transport of choice. In the week of the annual meeting in 2022, more than 1,000 private jets flew into airports that served Davos. Compare that with the 2 weeks before and after the meeting, and around half that number was recorded. WEF, for its part, encourages participants to travel by train and has offset 100% of the event's emissions since 2017. On the ground, it has increased the availability of electric vehicles, uses seasonal food, as well as other sustainable measures. But it's important to note that not everyone who descends on Davos during the annual meeting has a ticket to the official event. There is far less visibility around the sustainability of the many private events surrounding it. In a world that has become accustomed to virtual gatherings, some have questioned the necessity of such large in-person events. But WEF argues that the best progress happens when you bring people together. After all, that's what makes Davos, Davos.
So, of course, when they talk about rebuilding trust, you say, well, what are they going to talk about there, Well, they're going to talk about the things I broke down in a previous video, which you can look up for yourself. I have here, I'll link it below, a video on all the things they're going to do, all the methods of enslavement, all the methods of mind control. But again, when they talk about rebuilding trust, they put propaganda like that out so that people dispel people like us. And they say, you're just crazy. You're just a nut job. They put a nice little background music behind it like they do with everything else, which to me is the funniest form of mind control that they use. They put these wonderful little, everything's great and wonderful. They do it like in pharmaceutical commercials. They're like, the side effects may include diarrhea, your head exploding, crapping out of your mouth. Don't worry about it. They show people holding hands, walking on the beach. Pretty incredible. They put, that's all it takes. Binaural beats or whatever they need to put behind it, and people just go into a trance and they don't even realize what's being said to them, right? That's what the pharmaceutical ads are. Well, here, they do the same thing. They're like, hey, they're all great people. They want to rebuild trust. Well, why don't they have trust in the first place? Well, for starters, they were never elected to do anything, okay? They were never elected to make all these decisions that they make. They selected themselves because they're a global class of elites, of the rich. Now, one of the things they like to discuss is, you heard in there, which a lot of people need to look out for. I'm sure the alt-right media will play that deception as well. It is about the wealth distribution. They're all rich. It's not really fair that they're all rich. They're going to obviously pretend like they don't have money anymore, that they're giving away so they already do with their philanthropy acts. Why do you think every one of them pretends that they start charitable organizations? They're all fronts for laundering, you know what? They all do that. They're not giving up any of their wealth. They want you to give up yours, and if you won't give it up, they're going to take it from you. They're convincing you that the best thing for society is for everybody to have equal income. Well, they all fly around on islands, do all these things out in the public with children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So other things that I saw, and I'm going to cover this all week. I always do because I have, I sit through this stuff and listen to what they're talking about so I can pull clips and talk about it to everybody out there so they can see because they reveal their plans, right? It's just the way that it's worded. People out there watch this stuff. They're like, it's good for you. They're like, a prison cell, a prison cell will be really good for you in the long run. Being locked up, having shackles around your ankle, it'd be good for you, And the people out there are like, okay, yeah, okay. She looks like she sounds nice. She says it in a nice way. Okay, lock me up. I mean, that's how stupid people are. They're literally talking out in the open about what they're going to do to us, and yet they don't get arrested. I know, even Jeff C. used to cover rebel media. A lot of these fake alt-right media outlets go out there and pretend like they're, trying to get in and trying to go to BlackRock and do all this stuff. Don't even fall for some of that stuff, okay? Don't even bother falling for it because they control the alt-right media. They're trying to build credibility. There's different routes that they're taking to manipulate and hurt people. Obviously, they know people are going to be awake, so they want them to go into their honeypots, like the alt-right media, like rebel media, etc., okay, where they're there and they're like, hey, we're trying to break in. Hey, we're trying... The simple fact of the matter is those things also create walls that protect them from the civilians rising up against them because people watch that and they're like, yeah, go get them, when the people should just be getting together and doing something about it. Okay, it's called global treason. These people have been messing and meddling in all of our lives for far too long. So some of the other topics I'll discuss, I always seem to do a video or two about the celebrities that pop up there, mainly because... it's pretty hilarious when they pop up because people out there get all upset. They're like, I liked him. And I saw Rainn Wilson was doing some type of meta thing. It's on the World Economic Forum's website. So I'll cover that because I've exposed Rainn Wilson and his connection to those rings before. For anyone that's new to it, they're all involved. And you could see all the dots from the stuff they talk about, how they think that they're covert when they talk about pizza and other stuff in their tweets. Rainn Wilson's a very disturbing, sick individual who, of course, he's trying to play now to the right. He's one of those actors that's trying to play to the right while pushing the climate agenda, of course, because that's the enslavement agenda. So a lot of these people who think they're awake, they still play into these false idols. They still get manipulated. Like, oh, we're finally an actor that's conservative. Who cares? How about this, the whole concept of acting in Hollywood? How about we burn it down? The whole concept of it you're like, oh, it's to entertain us. It's to manipulate you and control your thoughts. That's what it's for. People are like, that's going too far. No, it's not. No, it's not. And as a society, have we benefited from Hollywood, from movies? 100 years ago, people didn't have manipulation like this. We didn't have chaos like this. It all stems from that. So the fact that there's people who claim to be awake, then like, oh, this celebrity's conservative. Dennis Quaid's conservative. Rainn Wilson's conservative. Who gives a crap what they are? We need to stop this from happening. We need to stop this because I'll tell you right now, the World Economic Forum, it continues to spread worse than any STD in the history of humanity. And until it's stopped by the civilians, it's going to continue to go on. So they'll put propaganda out there like I showed you. If you didn't laugh during that, well, maybe a different sense of humor than me. I'm watching that, I'm cracking up. They're like in 1987, Klaus Schwab, they've all met together. They stopped world conflict. They create the conflict. Hello? They create it. They script it. They plot it. They plan it. That's what they do. What do you think they're there for? Because they put millions of dollars. They even mention like, oh, they pay so much money to attend these meetings, etc. Oh, do they? To do what? Because they care so much about us? I mean, give me an utter break. They're like, it's an exclusive club. You have to pay a lot to be in it. Yeah, I'm sure they pay a lot to be in it. The money that they spend for their membership gives them a lot of caveats, like young children. Okay? I'll leave it at that. Can't imagine what's on the menu in Davos this year. I guess it's the same as any other year. A lot of red liquid. Okay, so I'll cover it. Stay tuned for it. Look out for my other videos on it. I've covered it in the past. I will continue to cover it. But they're looking to build trust, ladies and gentlemen. Trust. Yeah, trust them. If you trust in these people, then I guess you're the type of person who would trust the devil himself. Give me a break. I thank you for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always, and your families.